You've had the pundits, now we have the people. It's the big vote on Tuesday and a giant show here tonight. We are live from New York with a fired up crowd. Are you really?
Yeah!
They really are. See, I'm not making it up. They really are. We're all fired up. This election's so important and we have so many fantastic guests. We barely know what to do with them all. Evening, everyone. Welcome to The Next Revolution. I'm Steve Hilton and this is the home of positive populism. Positive populism, that is all about you, the American people, and how to make your life better. Tonight, we'll debate what's at stake in this election. The economy, jobs and your income, immigration and control of America's borders, a new Congress that backs the Trump agenda or one that blocks it. Will we see another victory for the forgotten man and woman, or is it going to be the revenge of the elites? So let's get on with it. Our audience will be taking part throughout the show. If you want to take part, please follow us at NextRevFNC and at Steve Hilton X. And we have surprise guests after every break, so you cannot miss a minute of tonight's special show. Right, first up, two of your favorite Next Revolutionaries, Fox News contributor Lisa Booth. There is Lisa. And former Bernie Sanders national staffer Teslin Figueroa. Come on, Teslin. And joining them tonight, our first surprise guest. Please welcome former campaign manager for President Trump, Corey Lewandowski. So there you are. I've been promising this lot surprises. So, you know, you're the first, Corey, so don't disappoint.
I won't.
Normally there's not this many people.
Exactly. It's so fun. So, Corey, you and I first met, I remember, it was in 2016. It was after Brexit, that campaign that I was involved in, during the 2016 campaign before President Trump won. And we both understood, we both really had that feeling that he was going to win because we knew that people had had enough of the failure of the elitist policies and so on. So thinking back to then, what is similar now compared to 2016 and what is different? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think what's similar is that you see how involved the people are when they go to these Trump rallies. They're, again, standing 8 hours in line to go see a man speak to them that they could do from their living room. And the reason that the pundits have missed this once again is that Donald Trump's agenda is to change Washington, D.C. He went down there, and it's amazing to me, Steve, because the pundits say, well, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. They never thought he was going to follow through on these things. So what you have now is you've got a president of 2 years of significant economic success. Homeland security, national security, and economic security are the three pillars of this presidency, and the American people are responding to that. When they wake up every day, there's more money in their 401k, they're safer as a country, and they are stronger with a stronger leader. We're no longer the country that gets mocked around the world. We're no longer the country that draws a line in the sand and gets walked over anymore. The American people have responded for strong leadership, and they know if they go backwards in this coming election and they put the Democrats in charge of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi has already said she will use the power of the subpoena to hold her position and keep the president from achieving his agenda. The American people they want to continue to move in the right direction. So I see a lot of similarities there. But the biggest thing that I see, the biggest similarity is how wrong the mainstream media is. Look, Nate Silver today said the Democrats could win or the Republicans could win. They're both just as likely. Well, of course that's not the case, but they were so wrong 2 years ago that when we woke up on election morning, you remember, the New York Times said there was a 1% chance Donald Trump was going to be elected president. Not like 2% or 3%. There's only two people in the race. He had a 1% chance. So the American people are smart. They vote and they want to change. They now have that change, and I don't believe they're going to go back in the wrong direction. You're going to see an increase in the Senate for the Republicans, and you're going to see the Republicans hold the majority of the House by the slimmest of margins.
Yeah, you're so right. What do you think of that? Do you agree with that? Okay. Well, but Corey's right, isn't he? Because it's the result. That's one of the things. Since that campaign, you've now got actual results. And the results, when you just list them, I was really interested to see someone who's, it was Bret Stephens, I think, in the New York Times, who's a never-Trumper, actually can't stand the president, but he did a brilliant job of listing the achievements, not just the economy, but just as Corey was saying, ISIS defeated and so on, and the Supreme Court moving in the right direction. There's real results there. What's your take on the state of play, Lisa?
Well, absolutely. And I also think it's the promises kept, because when you're trying to drive out your base, particularly the coalition that helped elect you in 2016, actually having kept those promises to the voters, when you look at Supreme Court justices repealing the individual mandate, tax reform law, deregulation, I think that helps, because voters are going to trust you and realize that they want your agenda to continue, and they want Republicans to maintain power in the House and the Senate. Now, if you look at the House, I think the path is there for Democrats to take back the House, in the sense of they just need to pick up 23 seats. You at least have 45 House districts that are either likely Dem, lean Dem, or toss-up districts. So the path is there. 24 Republicans in districts that Hillary Clinton won. However, there's been recent good news. The generic ballot has tightened to the point where the House looks like a toss-up. You have a lot of these races are within the margin of error, and women, which a lot of people have been touting as the key to Democrats' victory. ABC, Washington Post, actually saw that in previous polls, they had, I think, a 20-point advantage with women. That's dropped to 14%. And then when you look at independent females, they had a 33-point edge, and now it's 2. Well, so that's something to look for as well.
And the thing that's really important, you know, in the end, if you want it, you've got to go and vote for it. Let's just have a show of hands from the audience. So far, there's been so much talk about early voting. Who's voted already? Not that many. Okay, so who is planning to vote? Now, that's what you need. If you want it, you've got to have to vote for it. It looks like our audience is planning to do that. Teslin, just give me your perspective on how you think the Democrats have fought this campaign and what you would say they've done right and what they've got wrong.
Well, it reminds me of 2016 all over again, except with the exception of Hillary Clinton. She's not involved technically, I guess. But it's all come down to emotions versus the economy. Either you're voting on economy or you're really voting on emotion. And Democrats have truly, I mean, you just look at ad after ad after ad. I come from the great state of Texas, so ad after ad is either too liberal or too radical. Democrats are pushing radical, not really focusing on the issues of Texas. Texas has created more jobs than any state since 2008 combined. So we do a really good job on job economics, regardless of the administration. Texas has stayed pretty strong with that. But you look at how well Governor Abbott is doing compared to Ted Cruz. So when people say, well, even though Ted Cruz is doing very well, it would take Democrats, I believe, if every Democrat in Texas voted, you still will be behind, 500,000 votes. But just to have the energy that you see with Beto, not because I believe he's just some great messiah, great candidate, but because maybe Ted Cruz, people aren't on his board as Ted Cruz as they should be. But look at what Governor Abbott has been able to do. So this has really just come down to emotion versus economy. Democrats are pushing emotion, not necessarily focus on the issues of the economy, because that's where they'll see.
Well, we'll see who wins out. I just want to get a quick perspective from our audience. I know Michelle had an interesting perspective. Where is Michelle? There you are. So actually, by the way, I really wanted to talk to you because I think that you are perhaps the person who's travelled furthest to get here. Tell us where you've come from.
From Hawaii, Kauai.
From Kauai. So tell us what you're thinking about in terms of this election.
Actually, the thing that troubles me so much is that lack of respect and the great emotional divide, using your word, Teslin. It breaks my heart that people can't talk to each other. And I would love to know if anybody has some tips, not only for me, but for other people, on how we can have more respect, give each other the benefit of the doubt, the empathy that we need to have to understand diverging opinions.
Well, very much the aloha spirit there, if I may say. But what do you mean coming together around specific issues and policies and finding common ground? Is that what you're thinking of?
Well, actually, I don't know if common ground is the necessity there. I think the necessity is respect, and so that we can learn from each other. We may have different opinions, but how can we just listen to each other?
Right.
Because we're going to have different opinions, but perhaps we can get to the point where we can see that we both want the good things for our country and for our communities.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot of people here who I suspect don't feel that you are respected and listened to. I certainly feel that anyone who supports President Trump these days doesn't get respected. Anyone have a perspective on that? Do you agree with that? Over there, yeah.
Hi, Steve. I just think the left is so completely unhinged. And the younger kids today at the colleges are uneducated and they're being brainwashed. And, we bring intelligent debate. We're the guys opening the gates for our guys to go to work every morning. We're the people paying the taxes, creating the jobs. The left is totally unhinged. It's very hard to have a rational discussion with someone like that. And they don't want to listen. They just want to spray paint the front of your Republican headquarters. So,
right, fair enough. Well, we've seen a lot of that, I'm afraid. But remember, who was it that said, you cannot be civil? That was Hillary Clinton. Exactly. All right, coming up, what is the real threat to the spectacular economic success we've seen with President Trump? We'll be seeing Corey again later in the show, but a very special guest is going to be taking his seat right after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to our midterm special. One of the top issues for voters this week is the economy, and we've got the perfect person to break it all down. Joining Lisa and Teslin, you saw him on the show last week, but you can't have too much of the mooch. Please welcome former White House Communications Director and author of Trump, the Blue Collar President, Anthony Scaramucci. Oh my God. Do you do that? Is that your thing now?
Well, listen, it's not the Colbert Show, so they're saying mooch. They're not booing me. Right?
You got to clarify that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good clarification.
Thank you, Steve.
Exactly. So come on then, the economy. So we talked about it last week, and I want to come back to it because I think it's so important. I don't want to go over the great numbers. We've been talking about it a lot. It's phenomenal. I want to focus on the threat to that economy. And it's all about this confidence, isn't it? The business confidence that has led to the investment, which has led to the jobs and the wage increases. If the Democrats get in, that confidence goes.
Yeah, well, I think that if the Democrats get in, it'll definitely slow down the president's momentum. The good news, though, is that he's so confident on business, and American CEOs, large and small, are confident in him on business, that I think the business confidence will be okay. But the real threat that I see is in the trade situation, because the trade situation could slow down the economy inadvertently. The president is aware of that, which is why he's signaling to people that he's going to get a trade deal done with the Chinese, and he's close on that. And so I predict he gets that done by the end of January at the latest. And then he has a very, very nice story to tell going into 2019 and 2020. So I think that's one big potential headwind. The second headwind is the Federal Reserve right now is raising rates, as people know. That will slow down elements of the economy. Interest rate sensitive areas of the economy are already slowing a little bit. But the Fed has to do that because we're spending a lot of money on deficit spending right now. And in order to make our debt attractive, we have to make sure that we don't have a lot of inflation. And so those are some of the things that I'm personally worried about. I manage $11.5 billion, so this is stuff I look at every day. But here's the great thing about what's going on. The president has moved to delayer the regulation in the economy, and that has had an unbelievable effect on capital investment. And so as that flows back into the economy, and if we get this thing right over the next 3 or 4 years, this is a sustainable path to 3.5–4% growth, which will solve a lot of our problems, entitlement and otherwise.
So just a quick response on that. Any of those problems that you very smartly identified there made better by having the Democrats take the House or the Senate?
No. No, of course
I think that's what we need to do.
That's obvious.
That's kind of how I feel.
It's not, because, they're not focused on that. They're focused on microaggressions, political correctness.
Right.
And they're
that's
focused.
Right, isn't it?
They, one of the big things, and thank you so much for the shout out of my book last week, one of the things I wrote about is that the president really focused on lower income, and middle class people, and frankly, the blue collar people of America that have been forgotten by the establishment of both parties, Stephen. And so this is the real champion cause for him,
That's
President
right.
of the United States. And we need him to have the right members of the House and the Senate so that he can get more done.
Keep going and accelerate. So, Teslin, I mean, what Anthony just said is exactly right. It's tough for the Democrats to find fault with this, although they are trying. I saw Tom Perez today trying to find fault with it, and it was pointed out to him that the jobs picture is better than in any of the 4 years when he was actually the Labour Secretary. And he was kind of going on about, well, it's not as good as you think. Do you think that effort by the Democrats to say either it's not as good as you think, or it can't last, or it's all Obama's anyway. Do you think that will affect how people feel in terms of their vote?
Well, I mean, it obviously made a difference on why people went with President Trump in 2016. The left has consistently ignored people like myself. Even though I work for Senator Sanders, I am independent, I am not a socialist. I'm a two-time award-winning business owner that was a staffing manager that actually put people to work. So the left has done a terrible job consistently, year over year over year, not just now with President Trump, but consistently forgetting that there are people who are actually in business, there are people who do believe in capitalism, there are people who do believe in the private sector, but still have a soft heart, you know, for emotion and still all of the things that the Democrats, you know, push as far as social issues. So they have never been able to quite do that balance. And now you see even further to the left, like what Mooch is talking about, and not talking about the economy. And that's what's really going to hurt when it comes down to who's going to vote. I don't care about what the polls are saying, because we all know that the polls are wrong. But when it comes down to who goes into that booth and makes that decision, obviously in 2016, when they go into that booth, you will get a chance to see how people really feel. Are you living better than what you did the last 4 years? And at the bottom line is, regardless, if you are out and working, you're going to continue working regardless of who's in administration. And I mean, think people agree
if you want
to
to come to the riot, we'll have you on the team. Sounds like you kind of want to come.
Just hang on a second. There you go. Look at that. You never thought you didn't think you'd be doing that when you're on the Bernie campaign. All right.
Well,
so I'll get you to come in a second, Lisa. But I just wanted to get a point here from Larry. Where's Larry? There you are. So tell us, your thought was just actually very similar to something that Anthony was talking about in terms of the fiscal situation.
Well, Democrats and Republicans refuse to pay for increased spending or tax reductions by corresponding cuts in existing spending to balance the budget. America is maybe going the way of the world's superpower to the world's super debtor nation, resulting in our economic collapse, just like the Roman Empire. No mighty nation lives forever.
So can I get Lisa could you respond on that? This debt question doesn't seem to be featuring in the election at all.
No, it's not, and that is sad, and we have seen increases in the debt even under President Trump. And I would say that nobody wants to tackle the main drivers either, which are these entitlements, because people realize that it's a politically toxic issue, and that's why they don't want to address it. And it's sad, but I mean, I do think the economy, because it is so strong, we had those such great job numbers on Friday, 250,000 jobs added. I do think that's going to be a huge boost to Republicans, especially heading into Tuesday, because you look at, I think it's 65% of voters right now view the economy as either going extremely well or very well, which is the highest in nearly 2 decades. So people are feeling that in the sentiment. So I think that really helps Republicans. And I think it also helps potentially mitigate losses for Republicans in some of these competitive districts, and maybe even some of these districts where Hillary Clinton won. However, I think immigration is going to be one of the biggest drivers to the polls for Republicans, and people don't pay as much attention to that.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because
I might be talking about it.
I'm so sorry. I know you want to jump in, but the Mooch is staying with it. We've got to leave it there for now. No, you're staying with us. We'll see you later on. But up next, as we were just discussing, the top priority issue for many voters is immigration. And we'll be tackling that with 2 new special guests right after the break. Don't go away. Countdown to the midterms is on, and we have a live audience here in New York to help us tackle all the big issues, including immigration, the border wall, and national security. And Benji, right here, has got a point that you want to make. I want to get to you straight away.
Yes. Hey, Steve. Love the show.
Oh, you do? Well, that's very good to hear.
I was one of the people who was with President Trump last week at the Black Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. I just want to let Al Sharpton know I was not paid. Anyway, with all the new support that President Trump is getting
from... I just want to ask you about that, because how did you feel when I saw a lot of people, they literally described you as a prop?
Yes, we are the MAGA Negroes, according to the Root or whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, the whole point is that they're just upset that they see that Republicans are peeling off the black vote, and Republicans get 20%, 25% of the black vote. In 2 elections, there is no Democratic Party. They go the way of the Whigs in the garbage bin of history. That's why they're so upset, and that's why they go so hard against us. But it's working. We're moving. People like myself, like Candace Owens and Blexit and all that, and Walkaway as well. We're moving and we're doing it. They're just very upset. They're haters. I mean,
but how does it connect to immigration? Well, you had a point about
yes, because what I don't understand is that black people are polled at 70% against illegal immigration. So why is it that the Democrats are still pushing it, even though their core constituency is against it?
Yeah, that's
a bit strange.
It's a great point, and it's a point that Teslin makes often on the show, and it just goes to this point about immigration, uncontrolled immigration, hurting people, you know, who least can afford it, the working Americans and so on, including African Americans, Hispanic Americans and so on. All right, let's see who we have to join the mooch to break down this vital topic of immigration. Yes, the doctors are in the house. Please welcome Trump 2020 campaign media advisor and author of Mad Politics, Dr. Gina Loudon, and Fox News national security strategist, former deputy assistant to President Trump and author of Why We Fight, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. The doctors, here they are. So just before we get started, now you see we're matching here with the poppies. So just tell the audience here and at home what that's all about.
So as kids who grew up in the UK, this means a great deal to us. The Commonwealth countries hold a Memorial Day. We call it Veterans Day here in the US. And these are the poppies that grew in the fields after World War I. And this is to pay respect to all those who died in World War I.
I'm very pleased to do so. Thank you very much. And there's one last thing. So before we get back to immigration, there's a trivia quiz I want to try out on our audience. So Dr. Gorka just mentioned one of the things we have in common. We both grew up in the UK. What's the other thing we have in common? Does anyone know?
It's a pretty serious thing.
Hungarian ancestry.
Hungarian ancestry is very important. So should we do the rest of the? Let's do the rest of the segment in Hungarian. How do you think that would work?
Persze.
Persze, beszéljünk magyarul. Jó, és akkor...
És akkor a többiek hogyan fognak?
Nem számít. Make America great again in Hungarian. Can we do that?
Legyen Amerika nagyon jó még egyszer.
Not bad. He's not making it up. All right. Let's.
And our parents both escaped in the revolution.
That's right.
Wow. Right?
And my stepfather as well. All right. So, well, by the way, this really is a good connection to the point about immigration, that we are immigrants.
Well, our parents were
twice over, refugees. And so the point I've always made is that I'm pro-immigration, but it's got to be done the right way. It's got to be controlled. And it's been out of control for too long. Gina?
You're absolutely right. I mean, when we're looking at, for example, these migrant caravans, I think, you know, it would be, America is the most generous, charitable nation ever on the planet ever, right? And that stands, and we're like twice as generous as the rest of the entire world put together. We love to welcome people. We want to welcome people. Yes, we are proof right here that we are a nation of immigrants. But as much as you probably invite people into your home, maybe for Thanksgiving from your church, or I know I've invited the guy that delivers our firewood in because he didn't have any place to go. We all would do that. But you can't invite 500 people into your house. There's a certain point where logic has to dictate that now that these are waves of migrant immigrants, illegals, we have to have some law and order here. It has to be.
That's right.
The rule of
no
law
one's
has to be employed.
That's what I find so offensive about the way it's been characterized as being racist. If you just want a control of the system.
Coming from a president who married an immigrant, let's be clear.
Exactly
okay,
right.
so this is the same way that they call him an anti-Semite when his daughter converted to Judaism. It's the absurdity of the left. But the point you made with the audience is the key one. When we have waves of illegal immigrants, you are going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. Everybody in this room is going to be fine. But it's the manual laborer in California. It's the fruit picker who works legally who's going to be hurt the most. It's the people at the bottom rung of our society who are just trying to scrape by, and somebody comes across the board and says, I'll work for half of that, just give me the cash under the table. You're hurting the most vulnerable people in society if you think this is a good idea.
What do you think from an economic perspective?
So I just want to re-emphasize what Dr. Gorka is saying. So this is the miracle of the Trump economy. And so what he's actually done is by cutting the illegal immigration, and who wants illegal immigration? It's nonsense. By cutting it, he took the slack out of the labor market and he tightened the African American and Hispanic American labor markets to the lowest unemployment numbers in the recorded history of those markets. So he can't, for some reason, the left won't give him any credit for that. But the Wall Street Journal does. The Wall Street Journal says that those people that Dr. Gorka is talking about, their wages are up 5.5%. The bottom 10% of America, the wages are up 5.5% in the last year. This is the miracle of the Trump economy.
Think about this, Steve. There are oil companies in America right now that are offering $25,000 cash signing bonuses. If you've got a pulse and are breathing, and
are up 5.5% in the last year. This is the miracle of the Trump economy.
Think about this, Steve. There are oil companies in America right now that are offering $25,000 cash signing bonuses. If you've got a pulse and are breathing and you can drive a truck, you're working. That's the Trump economy.
That's right.
And illegal immigration kills that.
But there's also the crime issue. Steve, I just moved to Florida not that long ago from San Diego, California, of course, a border city, and I saw the crime exacted on the legal immigrant community, most of them legal immigrants from Mexico. Many of them, their family members are, for example, ICE agents. People don't realize that that's where the crime is exacted, the human trafficking, of course, the opioids we've heard all about. But in states like Arizona, crime rates among illegal immigrants, because this is often misreported by the more leftist regressive news outlets, is actually like 250% more exacted on mostly the legal immigrant population. So if you're really pro-immigrant, you should be pro-legal immigration only, because that protects the legal immigrants that are here.
Well, I don't know about that data, but I totally agree with the general point that we should be. I can see people nodding. I mean, who here is anti-immigration? You're not anti-immigration, right? You just want it controlled. I can see people nodding along with that. It just, and I think it goes to this point that if it's so evident that laws are being flouted and something so important is out of control, it undermines people's faith in government overall.
Yeah, but see, let's talk about the dirty little secret. This isn't about the economy. This is about illegal votes, right? When the Democrats say voter suppression, who's getting suppressed? People who are committing crimes by voting. They think they're going to lock in a new voter base by allowing illegal immigrants in, giving them IDs, as they do in California and other places, so they can vote illegally.
Driver licenses.
Right, driver licenses.
Right, yeah.
Or then somehow giving them an amnesty 5-10 years from now. The Democrats lie when they say they care. They say they're the compassionate party. It's about power. Everybody knows.
And by the way, I mean, again, some people hear that and think, oh, that's extreme, that's over the top. But, Stacey Abrams, candidate for governor in Georgia, she basically said it in a speech to supporters.
But it's also important to note that in many places now, it is perfectly legal for non-citizens to vote on the state and local level.
Well, in San Francisco, and local elections.
All right. Yes.
So sorry, it's such a big topic. We're out of time. Coming up, will Tuesday's vote be the voice of the people or the revenge of the elites? Another special guest joins us. Find out who's waiting back there after the break. Welcome back, everybody. Above all, 2016 was a powerful message to the elites from the forgotten men and women of America. So, will the elites get their revenge this time? Let's see what our audience thinks. Gina and Sebastian are still with us. And now let's welcome our next guest, senior advisor to the Trump 2020 campaign, Katrina Pearson. There we are. See, we got the whole gang here, Katrina. It's so great to see you. This must feel like a familiar battle. The voice of the people. President Trump's been out there on the rallies, and the elite saying, "Oh, he's racist." It's all the familiar attacks. It must just bring it all back.
It absolutely brings it all back, and I'm sure your audience remembers 2016 and the fight that we had. If Donald Trump wins, there's going to be nuclear war, and people are going to die, and it's going to be death and chaos and destruction. And what do we have? We have record low unemployment. We have a booming market. We have just an amazing abundance of opportunity now for all Americans with the amount of jobs that are being created, 250,000 alone this month. And we see that this has stoked more fear into the elitists, because who was this businessman who didn't have to kiss the ring, who didn't have to suck up to the donors, who didn't need the media, that just said, hey, I want to make the American people just as prosperous as I have been? Well, that's not allowed. So you have someone in President Trump now who's essentially put the lid back on the $20 trillion cookie jar and said no more. The United States is no longer the piggy bank. We have to take care of all people first. And so the global elites are infuriated right now. And that's why you see there's more talk of doom and gloom and destruction under Trump. But I believe, just as I did in 2016, that the American people see right through it. 70% of Americans know there's fake news out there. They can see exactly what's happening. They're looking at their 401ks. They see the future. Consumer confidence is at an all-time high. Small businesses, I mean, the list can go on. You can go to promiseskept.com. We can't keep track of everything that's happening because the president made a commitment to Americans, and he is doing everything that he can. And I heard you mentioning some of the rallies that he's been doing today, keeping that commitment to help hold the majority in the House and the Senate so we can move forward on the pro-America agenda.
So Gina, how's the president feeling? You had a fun trip this week. Tell us about that.
I did. I got to go aboard Air Force One with the president. Biggest honor of my whole entire life. I hope that you all get to do that someday.
Okay, I'm sorry, we can't guarantee that. It's very good of you all to all come along tonight. We appreciate it, but that is something we can't do.
Boundless energy. The man has such a passion, such a heart for each and every one of you. He really loves this country. He wants to give back to this country what he feels like he's had. And don't forget, this is a man who had the world by the tail. He could be golfing someplace at one of his luxurious clubs. Instead, he chose to sacrifice and take the bullets every single day because of the passion that you have for him, and he understands that. It is not lost on him, and I always want to assure you of that. He has you in his heart and his mind every single day, and he expresses that over and over again when you're with him. I know you all know.
So, Sebastian, I mean, the elites, they're sort of dying to get revenge, aren't they? I mean, just to see the look on their faces if they don't succeed.
They've been dying since November 2016.
Right.
Because remember, what did the New York Times, what did the Huffington Post tell us? On the day of the election, Hillary Clinton has a 94%, 95% lock-in. And the most glorious night of my life is watching that barometer on the New York Times go from 95% to 0, right? I mean, that was, the thing about Donald Trump is he owes the elite nothing. I mean, this is why Brexit occurred. It's this reaction to a failed elite, 40 years of failure and non-representation. That's why he's so dangerous, because the establishment doesn't need him, and the establishment knows that he is going to fix the things that they've created as problems. And the biggest point, Gina said he has this boundless energy. I've seen it. I worked for him in the campaign, worked for him in the White House, 2.5 hours sleep a day, never saw him tired, he never said, guys, I'm taking a nap now. Doesn't happen. Yeah. But the remarkable thing about this man is he wants all Americans to be safe and to prosper, whether or not you voted for him.
Great
and
point.
That's what the left will never, I mean, their heads will explode before they believe that he actually wants that for everybody.
That's, I mean, how do you feel about that? I can see a lot of people nodding. Exactly. It's just, and that's why I just get so upset when he, and especially his supporters, are just characterized as these selfish, self-interested, racist, xenophobic, this elitist talk. I just find it so offensive on behalf of Trump supporters who are just decent people who want the best for their family and their community. And they've got a president who's delivering that. Anyway, we've got to go. So sorry, we're out of time. Up next, what could happen if the Democrats take back Congress? Don't go away. The stakes are incredibly high on Tuesday, and no one should be complacent. The Democrats could take the House or the Senate or both. To discuss what that means, we're back with Katrina Pearson and rejoined by Corey Lewandowski. Now, Roger, over here, I think you've got a point you want to make on something that is so central, because I've heard a lot of people on the left say that this election is the chance to block what President Trump is doing, to constrain him, to stop him, to tie him down. That obstruction is what it's all about for the left. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's very interesting that the left likes constantly to talk about all the negatives that supposedly President Trump brings to the table, yet their obstruction, and they don't even see that the fear-mongering, that the anxiety that they keep talking about in the press, on the pundits, is really something that they're more guilty of. And I had someone on Twitter the other day ask me just exactly what are the negatives. What is the hatred that you're hearing from the left? And I first of all said, you've got to be kidding me.
Second of all, probably get off Twitter. It's not a good.
And I was responding to something from Laura Ingraham, by the way, and I said, well, let's start with the the hate speech that comes from the likes of Hillary Clinton, the likes of, oh my God, every day, Don Lemon, how Don Lemon still has a job after what he said.
Well, I think you're right. This negativity is what's driving them. Just one last question before we go. So have you signed up for Fox Nation?
I absolutely have.
Oh my gosh. So who signed up for Fox Nation? No, not enough. You're not going to be allowed out of here until you do. I'm just telling you right now. Okay, so this obstruction that we're hearing, you know, if they take over the committees, they're going to be calling for investigation after investigation. It just feels like that's something they're excited about doing. How is that helping the American people?
Well, Steve, what it really is the same obstructionist agenda that we've seen in Washington, D.C. for 30 years. And for the first time, we have the Republicans in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. And look how great our economy is doing. Look at the success we've had. But Nancy Pelosi wants to use the power of the subpoena to exert her own agenda on the administration. Look, it's not just Nancy Pelosi. It's Maxine Waters as the chairman of the Financial Services Committee.
How do you feel about that, Maxine Waters? That's not a surprise.
Look, it's Adam Schiff, who has never saw a camera he doesn't want to get in front of, as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Right?
What does Sean call him? Shifty Schiff, right?
Well, it's amazing. And look, and these are the same committees I've testified in front of in a closed-door hearing, and before I'm out of the room, Schiff has already left and told everyone what my testimony was in front of the CNN cameras. I mean, this is what we're up against right now. And so when the American people have a chance on Tuesday to go and vote, they have to ask themselves, do we want Jerry Nadler and Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi with the gavels? And if so, what does that mean for people day to day? It will keep people out of working for the government for the fear that they will instill.
That's exactly right. So Katrina, you know, it reminds me of Michelle's question right at the beginning from Hawaii there, about working together and understanding each. They've got no interest, it seems to me, in any kind of positive work to advance things that might help people. It's just obstruction and blocking, right?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there really is no desire for them to work. I mean, we saw President Trump earlier this year compromise on comprehensive immigration reform. And the Democrats wouldn't even come to the table, and he was willing to give them more than what Barack Obama was going to give. And Corey's absolutely right. I mean, really, there's going to be a choice between more progress, more forward movement, better economic policies, more prosperity versus Keystone cops, who are literally going to be running around Washington, D.C., screaming the sky is falling and trying to find some little desperate piece they can run on for 2020, and it's just not going to work. But again, I think the people really do see through this. I think they don't want to see one of the most corrupt members of Congress be in charge of finance for the entire country. And the president's been working hard. Many of us have been out on the road because we're committed to proving to the American people that this president is working for you, regardless if you voted for him or not. He wants to bring everybody, and he's the only one that's trying to do something together and bring everyone together, and they won't walk forward.
Exactly. So look, we got to go, but I just want to say, isn't it great to have these two here? I mean, look, they were there for the president. I think everyone has to be very grateful for all the work that you've done, and we're very grateful that you were here with us tonight.
Thank you.
Coming up, all of tonight's guests will be back with their final thoughts and their predictions. Don't go away. Well, the stakes are incredibly high on Tuesday, and no one should be complacent. The Democrats could take the House or the Senate or both. To discuss what that means, we're back with Katrina Pearson and rejoined by Corey Lewandowski. Now, Roger, over here, I think you've got a point you want to make on something that is so central, because I've heard a lot of people on the left say that this election is the chance to block what President Trump is doing, to constrain him, to stop him, to tie him down. That obstruction is what it's all about for the left. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's very interesting that the left likes constantly to talk about all the negatives that supposedly President Trump brings to the table, yet their obstruction, and they don't even see that the fear-mongering, that the anxiety that they keep talking about in the press, on the pundits, is really something that they're more guilty of. And I had someone on Twitter the other day ask me just exactly what are the negatives. What is the hatred that you're hearing from the left? And I first of all said, you've got to be kidding me.
Second of all, probably get off Twitter. It's not a good.
And I was responding to something from Laura Ingraham, by the way, and I said, Well, let's start with the hate speech that comes from the likes of Hillary Clinton, the likes of, oh my God, every day, Don Lemon. How Don Lemon still has a job after what he said.
Well, I think you're right. This negativity is what's driving them. Just one last question before we go. So have you signed up for Fox Nation?
I absolutely have.
Oh my gosh. So who signed up for Fox Nation? No, not enough. You're not going to be allowed out of here until you do. I'm just telling you right now. Okay, so this obstruction that we're hearing, if they take over the committees, they're going to be calling for investigation after investigation. It just feels like that's something they're excited about doing. How is that helping the American people?
Well, Steve, what it really is the same obstructionist agenda that we've seen in Washington, D.C. for 30 years. And for the first time, we have the Republicans in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. And look how great our economy is doing. Look at the success we've had. But Nancy Pelosi wants to use the power of the subpoena to exert her own agenda on the administration. Look, it's not just Nancy Pelosi. It's Maxine Waters as the chairman of the Financial Services Committee.
How do you feel about that, Maxine Waters? That's not a surprise.
Look, it's Adam Schiff, who has never saw a camera he doesn't want to get in front of, as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
What does Sean call him? Shifty Schiff, right?
Well, it's amazing. And look, and these are the same committees I've testified in front of in a closed-door hearing, and before I'm out of the room, Schiff has already left and told everyone what my testimony was in front of the CNN cameras. I mean, this is what we're up against right now. And so when the American people have a chance on Tuesday to go and vote, they have to ask themselves,